doing? Deuce, you all right?
I appreciate it, Coach. You
get my tweet?
Love, I appreciate it.
All right.
You don't get itchy.
Any questions? We're excited. Obviously, it was, a player, guy we had targeted, spent some time with, quite a bit of time with, and it just, really didn't know exactly at what point in the draft we felt he was going to be taken, specifically the first round. Like every year, we would discuss, who are the players that we would move forward for. And, he clearly for us was a guy that we felt strongly enough about. Fits a must position as well. We see him over at the right defensive end position. Compensation was fair. Any questions?
Sean, was a couple other players that were close to him compared like you?
Well, those players that were taken, like right in that same ballpark, you saw some real good linebackers go.
Right before?
Well, one was taken before, and quite sure Edmonds was taken a pick or two after, right? Those are all real good football players, and every year it seems like the quarterbacks kind of lead the way in regards to pushing other players back, and I think that was the case a little bit this year as well.
He stood up a lot. Is that going to be much of a transition going down?
No, and if he's comfortable standing, then he can play the same technique standing. I don't think that'll be a big transition. He is someone who's real explosive and got great makeup, and we're excited about the vision for him. It's pretty clear.
How big was the Senior Bowl week for him?
I think it was important. He played some 5 technique at that game, which is a little bit more of a different position for him. But we see him as an edge player, a pressure player. It did give you a chance to see a higher level of competition, and yet when you watch his college tape, there's a number of games against pretty good opponents. So, but I think that it was all part of the process. It was one piece of the evaluation.
What were some of the big games that you liked on?
Well, look, this is a school. It seems like in the last 7 or 8 years, there's been 4 or 5 programs that all of a sudden you're like, man, they're playing Houston, they're playing Baylor, they're playing UTEP, and the point is that we'll look at some film and we'll really look at some small schools. But I think it's a program that has made a commitment to a high level of competition. And well, the one thing that stands out is you see his effort and down in, down out, how he plays. That's pretty impressive. There'll be some things we'll have to work with him on, like any rookie, any young player. And we look forward to doing that.
Sean, what kind of conversation, if any, did you have with Frank Wilson as history here, honestly?
Pardon?
Frank Wilson, the coach there.
Yeah, quite a bit. The staff was very helpful in the evaluation. We lean on the college coaches. They were tremendous. They're really helpful. Again, the exposure to the Senior Bowl, Combine. He's a real. You guys will have a chance to meet him. A real sharp guy, and I think driven and focused, and will be anxious to get started. And I think his teammates here will see those traits.
How much is this to maybe take some heat off of Cam Jordan, and how much of this is just to improve the overall pass rush? A little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not interested in taking any heat off Cam. I'm interested in getting other players like Cam. So I think, look, one of the off-season targets was, a pressure player, and that might come as a guy who lines up inside. It might come from a player that lines up outside. But before we check that box, we have to feel like he can affect the quarterback. And our leagues, there's a premium on a few different positions. One of them is that. One of them is at corner. We saw the quarterbacks in the tackles. We can't find those guys when the season's over with, and we start free agency. They're generally players that you have to draft.
Sean, just describe
often in some of these scouting reports and everything as a bit of a raw developmental prospect. Do you think he deserves that label? I mean, I know all rookies are raw.
Yeah, listen, I think that's fair, and that's, you know, that's part of what we get to do as coaches. We look forward to that, and when you're around him and you're around this player, you're looking at certain traits, and he's a guy that fits the prototype scale, the metrics in regards to his height, weight, size, speed. He's tremendous makeup. He's very smart, and yeah, I'm sure, you know, our defensive coaches, you know, all of us are anxious to work with players like that, and hopefully allow them to maximize their potential. That's really what we are. We're teachers.
So do you envision him move inside sub packages? I mean, can he do that?
That's not my initial vision. My initial
Sometimes.
vision would be as an end position. Obviously, when you get to third down, you're trying to rotate your best rushers and put them on the field. And I wouldn't say you can't do that because you see evidence on film. So that'll kind of take care of itself once he's here.
He's got the frame to get bigger and stronger, right? You'd like to see him gain a little weight more?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the weight he's at right now. The strength, I think, is important, and I think there will be a certain weight gain, you know, when he just comes and is working just on football. But certainly his size and his measurables were important.
Mickey's moved up 6 times since he's been here and 5 since you've been here in round 1. And it's obviously a lot today for one player to go as far as we did today. What makes you guys?
Yeah, but when you look at the points on it, you're picking at 27. So let's call it a first round pick. It is, and yet it's pick 27. You know, to truly do the full metrics of the value, you'd have to jump ahead next year to see, all right, what's next year's one. So I think you're constantly paying attention to the charts, and teams in our league are on top of correct compensation. Periodically, you see one that gets bumped out of whack, but this was one that was easy. And look, these were the same questions last year when we moved our second round pick for Alvin Kamara, and that appears to be you're a lot, and yet you know, shoot, what's our country's national debt? I mean, you follow me? It's like however many $1 billion we're talking about. You know, hopefully a late round pick next year.
Sean, how did this deal come about? Was this something you all had a working agreement with Green Bay earlier?
Well, no, quite honestly, the process takes place days leading up to the draft where we talk to maybe teams outside those first 4, 5, 6. You know, 10 is a benchmark a little bit because the contracts can be different, you know, when it's an option year. But nonetheless, there is pre-draft discussion just with the idea of who might be interested in possibly moving. Because you know when the draft starts, you're not going to have that same amount of time, and yet, you know, there were a few teams we spoke with, and I would have said probably around the 8th or 9th pick, I would have picked 2 other teams that we were more likely to do a deal with that didn't happen, and then it ended up being Green Bay. So we were right in that middle of the first round, which is where we saw the value.
You're saying there were 2 other teams that you thought were more likely?
Well, there were just other teams on the phone. We're close with one other team. A player fell for them. You know, oftentimes it'll be just wait to see if our player's there. That's pretty normal. So without going into who all the other teams are, it's not unusual.
And
The
then,
top-
you said you met with him a bunch of times. What were the meetings beyond the Senior Bowl?
Well, combine, he's one where in 5 to 10 minutes, it's very apparent that it's on to the film study. You know, in other words, and it's credit to his family, his parents, his coaches. You know. So for us, it was a vision. Where do we see him playing? And then watching a lot of film on him. And that you know, there's some players that there are areas that have to be vetted more medically or other things. In his case, he's a quick study, quick learner, and we'll have a lot of work to do, but I know he's excited, and we are too, to get started.
There's been a ton of speculation throughout draft season about quarterbacks. I mean, you've talked about every quarterback under the sun. Is there any thought process of taking one in round one?
Oh yeah, we discuss it, and yet we try to grade each one and really tune out. It's hard now to tune out all the outside predictions. That's not the right word. It's hard to tune out a lot of the mocks, because if you're not careful, then you'll find yourself moving in a certain direction away from your conviction. And so clearly, I don't know that we had anyone graded like we had Patrick Mahomes a year ago, but that's the business we're in as well. It's not just defensive ends, it's quarterbacks, it's linebackers, and recognizing, obviously Drew's played a long time, and yet we're fully confident that he's going to continue to play, and we're pretty excited about the young guys that are working, behind him.
With Davenport, can you recall anything, maybe anecdotally, about his personality traits or maturity or character that struck you in any sort of way? I know he's a 4-year player, and how do you feel about his trajectory?
Smart, exceptionally smart, and but you guys will have a chance on a conference call. Maybe, I think when you guys finish your first visit with him, you'll understand he's bright, mature. He's a senior. I would say unremarkable, not in a good way, just someone who's, you just feel a maturity level and a work ethic, and someone that wants to improve and is humble, and yet I'm sure he's got some quirks. But I think that there's a passion you feel like when you're around him about the game, and it's really, we're searching for people that, that are in the passion business.
That sounds a lot like Sheldon Rankins when he was coming out, maybe like boring, but in a good way.
I don't know. Shelton's kind of an old soul, right? I mean, he's a little different. I don't know that I was gonna. It's hard, to compare him that way. I like Sheldon's personality. I wouldn't say Sheldon's boring. Each of these guys are unique, but when you visit with them that you're going to be able to check those boxes, and it becomes a more focused. We're always looking at the tape and evaluating the talent, but yeah, I think he's going to fit in well with his teammates here.
Sean, you guys seem to like bigger edge guys. I think Howie Kakaho's an exception in the draft. Is that, and that's even been through different defensive coordinators, is there a certain reason why you like the size from that edge position?
Well, history tells us they stay healthier and expend, or don't have to expend the same amount of energy. So, look, every team does a certain scale that's prototype, and it exists not that it's set in stone, but it just reminds you of what's playing. And so periodically we'll read a player with a certain height and weight, and we like this player a lot. And then, someone in the room will say, well, how many in the last 20 years have been this tall? And sometimes it might be too tall. And you do have to at least pay attention to that, because if the answer is there's been 2 in the last 20 years, then already you're battling a certain percentage. You just don't want to be disregarding those figures, and so that goes into your vision. Now, look, there are exceptions, and clearly we make exceptions. I mean, our Pro Bowl future Hall of Fame quarterback isn't prototype, and yet that's just part of it. It's not where you just say that's it. But Davenport happens to be prototype. He fits those measurables, and if you're not careful, then pretty soon you have a team full of exceptions. So you just got to be mindful of what's playing and who we're playing against. If we take a smaller corner, the question we have then is who's covering Julio, or Evans or, you know, in our division. Those are things that matter.
Sean, did you show up today or start the narrowing process of the draft with a conviction to get Marcus Davenport?
Yes,
or was
today, yesterday, last week. It's going to be too high to get Chubb. And look, the end made sense, but within the last week, 2 weeks, this was just a player. There were a handful of players, really, honestly. Edmonds, whose brother's with us, tremendous family, parents we know well. He's got another brother that's going to be drafted tomorrow. And I'm just giving you one other example, but there was a strong conviction that this might be in a target range for us, you know, realistically, to get into this round earlier.
This height, you know, batted passes were important for you guys last year. I mean, I don't know, was that a consideration at all?
Say it again.
Potential for batted passes, or does that?
So we'll ask the question 2 days ago, how many batted passes, how many quarterback disruptions? He's had 6, 8 batted passes in the last 2 years. We'll get 1 year study, we'll get career study. Batted passes would tell me he's somewhat instinctive, right? I mean, I know length is important in that, but guys that can rush with a vision and anticipate a ball being thrown, you know, some guys can have the length and the height and all those things and not have one batted down pass, and they might be a little bit focused more on, you know, the individual matchup, but he's someone that, you know, you see disruption when you see him play a lot.
Coach, with such a premium on edge rushers, you said you were trying to move up maybe earlier and the price was a little too high. Were you surprised he was there at 14?
We began at 9, 10, 11. We really began at 10, 11, 12, you know, in the double digits, and we were hoping that this was right around where we'd be able to select it. One more question, and then we're going to go.
6 forced fumbles, and then you're talking about the disruption.
Same thing.
All
Force,
around
yeah.
player.
And those, look, those all just go into the grade. You know, when a guy has 6 forced fumbles, that's not by accident. That's probably because he's pretty good at, you know, separating the ball from the player. All right, thanks.
Thank you.